Oh, another episode, man.
Another episode. This is it. Oh, I feel like all of our episodes have started with me saying some weird shit like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but the fight coordinator for Andor.
Yes.
Season 1 and Season 2.
Yes.
This is a big episode. I mean, this is big. This is huge.
This is first of all, this is Film Fights with Friends podcast's first Star Wars episode.
Is it?
And I, Stephen Kepfer, co-host, and Paul Veracci, co-host.
Oh my God, I completely forgot to introduce ourselves. I'm so excited about talking
it.
our episode.
I know.
I immediately want to just let's just bring in Mark. Forget about us. Let's just go into this.
This is our 31st episode, and it's still fucking up the intros.
I mean, I'm more excited. Well, which in turn made me fuck up the intro. So yeah, we fucked it up.
Yeah, it's all good, man. But Mark Kelly, the fight coordinator for Andor season 1 and 2, and on so many other amazing productions.
Amazing production. And I also just want to say that
actually he was in all of the Andor, the whole
series. He was in Rogue One as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Rogue One and the 2 seasons of Andor.
So this comes full circle. Yeah. And I think part of the reason I was saying it, I think we said it before. We may have said it when we were talking to Mark before we came on the interview. Part of the reason I love Andor so much is, you know me, I don't mind spoilers. I actually like it when people tell me the end, because the journey that you go on, even though you know the end, is absolutely amazing. And that's what Andor season 1 and 2 is, the journey to A New Hope.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome, even though we know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I just love how that's just watching that story develop.
It's like a macro version of those movies that start with the ending.
Yes.
And then bring you all the way back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I can't wait.
Stuff. Dude, and the interview was so great. I cannot wait for people to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time this episode airs, the entire series of season 2 will be released.
Mm-hmm.
So you should hopefully have been watching it by the time you hear this episode. You should have been watching this show. Right. So that's kind of cool. You can finish up the series and then jump on here and hear about all the fight coordination and stuff.
I would say that of all of our episodes, we are Film Fights with Friends.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this is the most integral episode of Film Fights and Friends.
Yeah.
This literally, we spend the entire time. That's all we talk about.
That's all we talk about. And Mark has become known for his ability to shoot and cut previs.
Mm-hmm.
And we really get into that process in this episode, like really deep into that process.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Some of the stuff that he talked about, and you guys will hear it about drifting attention and not drifting attention, and what to include and what not to include, and when to include, and all the different factors involved into creating good previs that changes from production to production, of course, is really, really interesting. Yeah. I think anybody in the stunt world,
if you're even thinking about getting behind the camera,
well, yeah, I was going to say, or just in a film as a filmmaker who's interested in shooting action, this is an episode you are not going to want to miss. And he gave us so much B-roll and video from the previses and rehearsals for season 1. And
I feel honored to say that we've seen stuff that we can't even talk about.
Yeah, he gave us sneak peeks of some previs for season 2. We're not going to share it with you guys. We don't want to blow up any stories. It's freaking awesome. I mean, he gave us stuff we didn't even talk about in the interview because it went so well. Like Meg 2 with Jason Statham. He sent us the previses for the fight scenes for that. And, I mean, he's worked on Black Mirror. What else? Geez, Wonder Woman.
Gangs of London.
Yeah, Gangs of London. Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Agency, which I love that show. He was fight coordinator on The Agency. Really great interview. I feel almost like I just took a class in film school.
Right. You know how when you get to pay for one of those like interactive, and where you get, and at the end you get to just talk and bullshit with the teacher for a little while. I felt like that's what our interview was. Yeah,
it was totally cool. So it is our first Star Wars episode. What do we got on the table here? Most of it is mine, but one of them is yours.
It is. I mean, obviously I have a lot of Star Wars stuff at home, but I couldn't pick and choose because everything was so Andor related, and a lot of my stuff is just Mandalorian and subcontext. So I brought in this Blu-ray version, I had this company make called Sloppy Seconds. And if you have any version of anything in your brain that you would like to see, send it to them and they will make it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what they call the Grindhouse version of Star Wars. So this is the 3 original Star Wars on Blu-ray in the original aspect ratio and how they were edited. So there's no 1994 special ed bullshit.
Yeah, this is not the reboots that
Han shoots first.
Yeah,
He's a murdering fucking scumbag, and I love it.
Yep.
And that's the way Star Wars should be seen.
Cool.
So I have the Grindhouse version is what this is called.
Nice. I have on the table a couple of my favorite Star Wars collectible stuff. The first is this Empire Strikes Back figure, the Cloud Car pilot. But what makes this special is like this was like 1981 or whenever, you know, this is when they were.
It's probably on the back.
Oh yeah. Well, it's when they were pumping up Revenge of the Jedi. Yes. So this is before they changed the title to Return of the Jedi, and I'll hold it up to the camera real quick, but you can see it says Revenge of the Jedi, and this is like when you would cut away the proof of purchases and send it in for a free figure. And so this is the free Admiral Akbar figure for the Revenge of the Jedi. And I remember they announced it on the news. They were recalling these toys, and I ran.
That's not Admiral Akbar. Admiral Akbar's the fish guy, right?
That is him. That's the free figure that you would get when you send.
Right.
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
Yeah, totally. And then this is when I actually did send in the proof of purchases and get a figure for the new, soon to be released Episode 1. And this is I bought a whole bunch of shitty, figures so I could cut out.
Mace Windu. Oh, and this is before they gave him the fucking purple sword. His sword's green.
This is a blue lightsaber.
I'm colorblind, whatever.
This is the advanced figure of Mace Windu, and you can see he's got this is the Episode 1 sneak preview figure, and he's got the blue lightsaber, not the purple pinky one that he had in the.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Samuel L. Jackson and the asking for the purple lightsaber is what is why there's so many different colored lightsabers now. I believe that I thought that there was like a set, like this is good, this is bad, this is this is that. These are the colors. And then he was like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And then they gave him I don't know the whole aspect in the background of the story, but I do believe that Samuel L. Jackson asking for a purple lightsaber is the reason there are all different colored lightsabers now.
Please, YouTube listeners,
find out and let us know. I thought that had something to do with it, that it was like red, green, and blue.
Shoot us an email at fightingwithfriendspod@gmail.com if you know the answer to this.
Because I know that there are Star Wars maniacs out there that go way into this lore. So if you could let us know, I would appreciate it.
So, and this I brought in my buddy and also BJJ Black Belt, yet another BJJ Black Belt in the arts community, is the actual artist that did hand drawing cards for Topps.
Sketch cards. Oh, the sketch cards for Topps. Nice. Yeah, the limited ones.
Yes. So this is the one from Mandalorian, and this is this is not a copy, this is his actual sketch. And there's his signature on the back.
Send it into PSA, get it slabbed and graded.
And then speaking of PSA gradings, here is an old Empire Strikes Back card, Boba Fett card. Yeah, totally. And like you just said, this is so old that
PSA card is so old it actually doesn't have a number grade. It just says mint to near mint.
Yeah. So it's pretty epic that we're finally doing a Star Wars episode. I'm pretty excited.
Oh, what about that awesome sweatshirt you have on, bro?
Hoodie. I don't know if y'all can see it. Yeah, it's the Darth Yoda. And you want to tell about how I got this? Because it was a gift from you.
So basically my brother gave this sweatshirt to me, and it was a little too fucking big.
In other words, he's saying Steve's fatter.
So it was one of those things that was just so cool. Like I kind of didn't want to keep something I couldn't wear and enjoy. Yeah. And even though I gave it to Steve and I was like, don't fucking wear or enjoy this.
This is the first time I've worn it since you gave it to me. But this is it's a limited edition.
Yeah, it's a Neil Barrett limited edition. I think they only made a couple hundred of them. So it's an artist edition sweatshirt. And they go for about $250 to $500
on
like if you can find one.
Yeah.
When I saw you put it on today, I was kind of like, fuck.
I'm still trying to fill it out more.
It's all, no, don't stop. You're doing good going the other way.
Cool.
You're doing good. You keep me motivated.
Yeah.
Like we do the weight loss. We do the weight loss motivation together.
Anyway, Star Wars. We could talk Star Wars all day.
I could talk Star Wars forever.
But you know what? The cool thing is when I was a kid, like on my bookshelf library was all the behind the scenes, how they made Star Wars, all the model making and stuff. And there is a film festival that we are sponsoring called the Art of Movie Making Film Festival, which celebrates these very people.
That is a great segue.
Thank you, sir.
Phenomenal, brother.
I like that. Yeah. But celebrates all the crafts people behind movie making. The props makers, the puppeteers, the set decorators, the wardrobers, costume, all that stuff, and stunt performers.
And that's going to be in October. We're doing that, right?
October, yes.
Very
so
nice.
If you are a stunt performer or a director of a movie that has a cool stunt sequence in it, you can submit for best stunt performance. We'll put the Film Freeway link in our show notes. And the winner of the best stunt performance award will
be on the show.
Be invited on this show, at least. They might listen to the show and be like, I ain't going on that.
Been like, fuck
show.
that.
Yeah. But we will invite them, and hopefully they will come on. So that'll be cool.
And then we also have our own little private screening. I don't know if we just call it a festival, but it's a private screening. And
it's our second live event for the film Fights with Friends.
I'm very excited. I thought our first live event went great.
It was. And it was so awesome to meet the Patreon supporters in person.
And there's something about just watching something and then being able to sit on the stage and engage with them afterwards. Yeah. It's just so organic.
It was great.
Like, it was great. I loved it.
Totally great. So
I can't wait to do this one again.
We have our second live event, which will be a screening of the documentary Safe Sets.
And all of our Patreon members are invited. And if you are interested in seeing this, become a Patreon member. And then otherwise, we will probably be inviting a few select industry people.
Yeah.
Most likely stunt people,
filmmakers. We'll see. There's a lot of people who will be contributing to the invite list.
But hey, if this interests you, maybe you start engaging us on social media a little bit. Give us a thumbs up, a couple of follows, make a couple of comments, and maybe you'll get to come.
If you are in the safety industry and you're interested in seeing this movie, I mean, the movie is out on the festival circuit right now, so you could check it out. Look up Safe Sets Dying to Be in the Film Industry is the name of the documentary. So it is out there now, just not wide release. It's still in festivals, but we will be bringing it to New York City.
That being said, it made me think we should actually see if we can get a medic to come on the show one day and talk to a set medic.
Sure.
And just see, because first of all, there's so many different things we can talk to them about shows that they've worked on. But I think this is just an important topic. Maybe we should get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say,
we know some, but I think if you're interested in coming, consider,
and we
a few bucks on Patreon.
And we were lucky enough to get an early screener and be able to watch this. And I was blown away in the most positive, but also negative ways in the in the disregard that of the reason for some of these horrible incidents that this documentary goes.
Positively, it's an amazing film. Like as a film, it is phenomenal. But the topic it covers is really
goosebumps.
Yeah,
goosebumps.
Scary. Dr. Paul Heinzelman is the director, and phenomenal job. I mean, he was a doctor that got called to work on a film set for some medical reason. He's also specializes in public health, and he started to see what we all talk about quietly regarding safety concerns on film sets, and made a documentary about it. It's just really good, and I think it'll be super important because a lot of times change has to come from outside the community, and he's someone who came from outside the community and saw a lot of concerns. So definitely. So hook us up on Patreon if you want to, be invited to come see it,
or just support us in any other, on any of our other platforms. You can like, follow, subscribe, on YouTube, Instagram.
You name it.
What else we got?
Everywhere.
What else
We're everywhere.
TikTok. What else can you do things for us on?
TikTok. Film Fights Friends Pod. It's at Films Fights Friends Pod on TikTok, on Instagram. I mean, the links are all in the show notes. We're everywhere. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us a review. We could actually use more reviews on IMDb and on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere else we can get reviews. But those are the two main ones that will take reviews.
And please.
And Amazon.
I mean, if you are I fucking said I mean again. I got to stop doing that shit.
I mean, you mean?
I mean, fuck. So let's get into this interview so I can stop saying I mean.
I agree. I think it's about time to talk Star Wars with someone that's actually in the Star Wars universe.
So jealous.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring him on. Wow, Mark, I am so glad we made this happen, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yep. That's where I'm at right now. I'm pretty excited to have you here, Mark. I mean, this is awesome. Your resume is.
Yeah. And plus,
I don't know what else I could do except for just drop my shoulders and tilt my head to the side and shake my head, man.
This is our first Star Wars episode. Our first Star Wars episode is pretty exciting too.
We are very excited to have our first Star Wars episode because we are both Star Wars fucking nerds.
We always change what's on the table here based on the subject of the show, and it was basically like we don't know what to bring because
I had so many things I could have brung, and
I have like the little snow speeder there.
Oh, amazing!
You know, even down to the sweatshirt. Steve's sweatshirt is.
Yeah, great.
Darth Yoda. Wow. This is a limited edition. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I'm super grateful to be invited on. And
the Neil Barrett limited edition.
Yeah.
The sweatshirt. Yeah.
But now we'll have to get a mini Mark Kelly.
Right? Yeah. That'd be cool.
We need a Mark Kelly custom pop, honestly.
I mean, it can happen.
Yeah.
I'll arrange something. I'll speak to my people, they'll speak to your people. we'll get something sent over.
We'll make it happen.
Totally.
No, it's funny actually. I remember when I finished season 1 of Andor, and I didn't when I worked on it, I didn't really know how big it was going to be. Like, we were doing a lot of Disney series at that time. There was a lot in the UK, and it was just another Andor. Like, it was just a spin-off. Okay, cool. I'm doing a spin-off. They gave me this pendant. I need to find it when I finished season 1, and it's like an official crew pendant from Andor. And I got it. I was like, yeah, whatever. And now I'm like, that's probably worth quite a lot. You know, it's like people are really into Andor, so it's kind of cool to be involved.
That's like when I took Paul to the premiere, the John Wick 3 premiere, and we all got the coins.
So cool.
So cool.
Yeah, I love those kind of little
it's kind of Andor's turned out to be a bit of like a cultural phenomenon in and amongst the Star Wars community, because I see like comments on the trailer and it's like resoundingly positive, which is so cool. It's cool to be involved in season 1 and season 2 of that, and it's also cool to kind of know that, well, it's sad, but that's it. There's not going to be a season 3. You know.
Well, I think that's part of the reason is, at least in my opinion, Rogue One is the best fucking Star Wars movie that they have made. Period. Like since the originals, Rogue One for me takes the fucking cake. It was awesome. It was
it's kind of fun because I actually worked on Rogue One as well. So I did Rogue One.
Yes.
Yep.
Andor. Those are the only Star Wars I've done. Oh no, I did.
No, you were on Solo, right?
Solo,
Solo.
Yeah. The reason I don't remember that is because I was so briefly in, and I didn't even get used. It was so the late great Brad Allen was second unit director, and I was doubling an actor, and the actor was good enough. So I literally just stood there, basically doing nothing for 2 days. So I don't remember Solo so well.
Sure.
But yeah, the sort of Rogue One Andor world, it seems to be like the world I'm involved in Star Wars, which I think it's cool. I'm really happy about it.
I also love knowing the end and then watching how the story developed. Like, you know me, I'm like, I don't care about spoilers. I read the Half-Blood Prince backwards.
Yes. Yeah.
I literally read it backwards. I read it from the cover to cover the wrong fucking way.
Yeah.
So spoilers to me, I love the unfold. Yeah. That's what matters. I don't care about the end.
Well, that's a great segue, because we're going to talk about Previz, right? And we're going to start in Andor season 1. and you sent us. Thank you so much for sending us all those videos, and we'll drop some clips of it in the video here, so people listening can see it. But also, before we start this conversation, for the viewers and listeners, hit pause, go to the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the fight from the action sequence from episode 6 of Andor that we're going to talk about right now. Watch it and then come back so you know what the hell we're talking about.
And if you haven't seen it at all, just go watch marathon the whole fucking season, then come back to us.
I mean, last night I watched.
Agreed.
Last night,
it's that good.
Yes,
it
is.
really is.
Well, and the funny thing was last night, because in my head I'm like, oh, I kind of know the story, right? And then I go back last night to prep for this, and I watched episode 3 and episode 6, like the 2 that you sent us the Previz for.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I forgot.
I gotta watch all that.
I forgot about that. I'm gonna have to rewatch it all before I watch the new season.
And still, even watching it, the anticipation of knowing that this leads up to the scene when Darth Vader goes into the ship and tries to get the hologram message. It just makes it even more.
It's great.
It's great.
It's so good.
There was so much that we have done on season 1 and season 2 that even though I know the story of what happens, and I can't talk about it from season 2 right now because there's one way that it ends. There's one episode that we did specifically that involved a certain character that it was just like, oh, that's how they get to Rogue One, and it's so fun. I'm like reading the script, and Tony Gilroy is like, I was so lucky to just read the stuff that he's writing, and obviously we met him and everything, but reading his writing, you're so invested in the story that he's putting down that you're like so excited for everyone, and it's like been so difficult, especially when you meet certain like Star Wars fans, to be like, they're like, oh, does this happen? You're like, I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to enjoy it, you know? So there's some really great stuff that he's just an absolute genius. And I really enjoyed episode 3 and 6. He was like doing these arcs where every third episode, something big would happen. And that's kind of what he was doing with those 2 ones, which was great to be a part of.
It's awesome, dude. Go
ahead.
What?
Oh, no, I was going to say, so you got this job from Andor through that internet video, right?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, like, because I do the Krav Maga, so everybody fucking sent me that video. and the first thing was, I was like, that's awesome. I'm like, but it's not real.
The video is linked in the show.
I was like, I've never seen a not real video look so real. I'm like, but it's not real. I'm like, nobody falls like that. Unless they're falling on purpose. So it was so funny that how I was getting like so many, I don't know anyone that didn't think that was real.
So that video, so if people haven't seen it, you guys will link it. It's a video, a viral video that myself and I have a sort of assistant fight coordinator, best friend of mine. We kind of do all our stuff together, Cheyanich. And we one day decided, it was his idea. He was like, oh, I want to do this CCTV fight scene and let's just see what it is. And then he described this scene to me, and it's basically, he was like, let's have 2 guys walking down an alleyway and then another 2 guys pick on them, and the 2 guys absolutely fuck up these other guys. And I'm like, let me change that. Let's do it like, how about the guys with a girl, you know, and these 2 guys are there sort of, you know, oppressing, you know, the couple walking, because I was like, you know, everyone's had a scenario where they're with their partner or their sister or something. And if you live in the city, you might be walking past some characters where you're like, you're just thinking in your head, like, I hope nothing goes down here, you know, or something like there's just a nervousness for a second or 2. And then in your head after you've sort of walked away, you're like, yeah, I totally would have fucked them up anyway. You know, they're lucky they did it. And I was like, you know, it'd be funny to make a video where that happens. And yeah, we just did it literally. It was like 20 minutes. We set up the camera, and I'm the guy in the white cap that punches Che. I'm the guy that takes out the 2 guys, and I punched Che, and Che was the one that did that very stiff reaction, it was such a good reaction. He fell hard. He came up with the idea of the video because he wanted to do that reaction. He saw that reaction from a UFC knockout. I'm forgetting the name. It's a spinning wheel kick by Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa does a spinning heel kick, kicks a guy, and the guy freezes up and sort of falls down like
to
that.
The point of where I know that fall because I love it because it's so pronounced because his feet stay stiff. So as his heels come up, his feet come up at the same time, and you're just like, oh,
those are the most scary knockouts where they stiffen up. That was what Fedor did to Matt Lindland when he knocked him out. He went down like a stiff board.
Yeah.
Boom.
And it was exactly that knockout. And I remember seeing when it went viral, I remember seeing one of the comments, me and Che both saw one of the comments. Someone was like, oh my God, this looks like the knockout that Edson Barbosa did on some. We were both like, yes, that's what we wanted. We've come full circle. But yeah, so anyway, so that video did the rounds, and it did the rounds kind of amongst everyone. Like it did the rounds here. It was in the papers. Like people were like, Russian special forces kicks two guys. Like the stories are hilarious. And actually,
dude, the different versions that I got when people were like, "Oh, look at this guy," and I was like,
"Yeah." People will say all sorts of stuff. But anyway, it did the rounds in the stunt community, but we sat on it and we didn't share it as us for a long time. We weren't sure. There was this whole time of like fake news. It blew up way more than we wanted it to. So we sat on it. We didn't really do anything about it. We just sat there quietly. I'd have people come up to me and show me and be like, "Oh, have you seen this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, that's violent. Yeah, nice." I wouldn't say, like, and then it kind of did the rounds enough where it sort of died down. And then it was so big that I could literally go onto a video and comment and be like, "I did this. It's a fake video." And someone's replying back to me like, "You idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. There's no one can fall like that." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So,
it's so
yes,
funny.
Yeah. So the stunt coordinator, so we put it into our show reel, our fight choreography show reel. And I sent it out to a couple of coordinators. We just finished the sort of COVID lockdown period.
And I said, "Why are you stealing these viral videos and putting them in your reel?"
Yeah. Well, luckily we had a good way of editing where we like show the viral video and then we actually show the raw footage next to it, like high resolution. But you see our faces, and so I didn't put that online because I don't want to draw that kind of like attention. Anyway, we sent it around, and then I got a response from the coordinator, who at the time, Mark Maley, the stunt coordinator, who also did both Andors. He gave me a call and he was like, "Oh, I've just seen the show reel. I'm starting something, a little Disney show called Andor." And again, like I said at the time, it's like you just don't think of anything of it. You're like, "Oh, cool, another Disney thing, great." Oh, yeah. And he was like, "Oh, are you interested?" He actually brought up the viral video that we did, because if you remember correctly, in season 1, episode 1 of Andor, Cassian, he's kind of in an alleyway and two guards hold him up. It's basically like
I was going to say that's actually the first fight that I remember. So I was wondering if that vision of that scene, because it was so early on, was like, "Oh, this is the guy that we need."
That was exactly it. So it was basically they wanted, Mark was like, saw that knockout, was like, "Oh my God, this is so cool. This is so real." Because he spoke to me on the phone briefly and he was like, "Listen, I'm working with Tony Gilroy. He's on Andor. He wants like realism in some of the fights. He wants the action to look real. And what you did in the alleyway looked cool and real. We'd love to sort of try and introduce that." So I ended up doubling the guy that gets killed, the actor that gets killed by Cassian headbutting him. And what's really cool about that is, like, I had no idea that in the story, that little fight scene is what kind of sets this story in motion for Cassian to then be wanted by, by the police. And he goes on this run, and, Cyril gets it like really deep into trying to find out who it was. And I was involved in that. And anyway, they were trying to replicate the fall. And we ended up like doing a version on camera, and it was just too violent. It's like it looks too violent. So they ended up not really showing, the reaction that I did to sell that. They ended up going, "Do you know what? It's better that we do it, and it looks like, oh, he didn't mean to kill that guy. That guy just sort of fell, hit his head." So, but that video basically got me that job on Andor, and then I went in, did that scene. I was talking to them and they were like, "Oh, we've got lots of previs on this that we want to try and start doing." And then, I ended up doing loads of previs on Andor season 1. And it was really cool because so on Andor season 1, I wasn't full time on it because they didn't set out with the, I guess the anticipation that they would need full-time previs. So they were doing previs every time they had a big scene. And the Previz for them was so successful on season 1, it like helped them so much that by the time season 2 came around, it was like full-time fight coordinator, assistant fight coordinator, full-time Previz. So it was really cool, and it kind of shows you how much the action also goes up for season 2. And it's still grounded action, but yeah, it was like this viral video of 2 guys in an alleyway ends up landing me the job on Andor, and then sort of kickstarts this career I have in Andor, where I've spent, if I calculate all the time I've spent on it, it's like almost 2 years of my life, like actually working on the jobs, you know, from beginning to end, and just being super involved in it. And it was like a 30-minute viral video that we did from
That's
there.
crazy.
I mean, when I was watching your Previzes, I was fucking amazed. I'm like,
well, let's be real. You were jealous.
Shit, yeah, kind of like fuck you, man. I mean, dude, like I was like, okay, so this is basically like your Previz looked like it has the budget of a fucking Nickelodeon kids show.
Wow.
Because I'm just like, oh, that's literally what it like. What the fuck? I kind of fucking hate you. But you look like the effects, the editing, all of it. Like that's so awesome that you can
appreciate
that you can really nerd out on a Previz in a way of where you can really put your heart into it and not just been like, fuck man, I got to get this done so they can see it so we can get on set and shoot it.
Yeah. I mean,
that season 6, let's talk about that escape scene, because that Previz, we also have the actual scene on YouTube. But there's so much of that Previz is not action. They really had
a lot of setup.
Yeah, they really had you set the scene in the
So
Previz.
Like some of us, we'll watch for 3 minutes, and you're like, hey, the action is at 4.
I know. Yeah. That became a theme for Andor, and I've honestly never done a job since then that has required so much of us from Previz. And I think it was, like I said, the level. So all the Previz, myself and Che, like, I don't know what it is, we work so well together that we want to put out high quality product, because, and I've said this before in other podcasts, high quality product is the best way. Like when you're doing a Previz, it's the best way to sell whatever ideas you want to try and get into the show. You know, you might want to get a stunt in, you might want to get a high fall in, but if you just like do black screen high fall, the producer there who's paying for it all might be like, do we need that? I don't think we need that high fall. But then you show it, you demonstrate it, and they go, that's really cool. That really adds to a lot. And you think this is going to be better on the day, and you're like, yeah, this is going to be so much better on the day. So we always try to do really high-end Previz here in the UK, like for jobs. And on Andor, we started doing the Previz, and then more and more they would actually ask us, like, so I would start the Previz, I'd be like, read the dialogue or this. I was like, okay, there's the action, let's start the action. And then later on, as the season progressed, Mark would be like, no, they want us to do the whole thing. And I'm like, what do you mean the whole thing? They're like, they want the whole thing. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. You know, so we ended up like literally getting from the beginning, because like you said, there's so much setup that Tony and all the producers and even the cast, which are the Previz, the cast, if you just jump straight into the action, it kind of sometimes defeats the point of this exercise of a Previz, because the point of a Previz isn't just to showcase the action. Sometimes the Previz is a good way to it's kind of like brainstorm and problem solve what the writers have written to translate that on screen. And you might come across problems that no one has thought about until you try to put that on screen. And you might go, well, this doesn't make sense because it's written that, you know, Cassian is over here, but how does he meet this person over there? And that's why they started really liking the setups, because then we go back to them and say, hey guys, so I know you've done this, and what do you think if we put Cassian in this position, then it really helps later on? And they go, oh, can you show us? Yeah, that's great, perfect. So it wasn't so much that the directors weren't capable of doing the scene themselves. It was just such a good exercise. And Andor's multi-episodic, right? So multi-episodic seasons, it's not like a film. There's no prep period and then shooting period. It's all happening simultaneously. So you're doing prep for episode 2 at the same time as episode 1 is shooting, and then a new director from episode 3 is coming in, and he's reading and wants to have conversations about episode 3, and that's if they shoot in sequence. And in Andor, and like most things, they don't shoot in sequence because they've got to try and balance actor availability and all this kind of stuff. So you might be doing episode 10, a fight scene, and then director from episode 2 wants to talk about episode 6, and it is just carnage. And so having a Previz there, I think, much to their credit, much to the production team's credit, it was like the biggest problem solver. And Tony loved them. Like, Tony would email the team sometimes, especially in season 2. Mark would send him a Previz, and Tony would email the team, and the messages were like, "This is fucking amazing, guys. I love this. I love this idea. This is great. Let's do this." And sometimes, like, Mark would be quite bold and be like, you know, we'd read a piece in the script and he would be like, "Let's change that maybe like this." And it would be quite a bold change, but because it was delivered quite well, you know, or delivered to a high standard, it made the change a lot more easy to swallow, you know, because in like production, everyone holds on to their ideas sometimes, and everyone gets really possessive. Like, I don't want to be told what to do. And I had that very little on Andor. You know, we would show a Previz. I've been on other shows before. I've shown a Previz, and I've literally had the director somewhat feel threatened or maybe in competition or something, like, yeah, nice Previz. I'm still going to do my own thing. And there's famous directors that don't even want Previz at all, right? They don't even want to see a Previz. And that's fine. And I do totally get that. But when you're dealing with a monster like Andor, where it's multi-episodic, so much action going on, different director every time, the story is so deep, a Previz is like, it's just going to help. Even if you don't shoot the Previz, it's just going to help. And sometimes the Previz was like so well received. I really wish I framed this. In season 2, Tony Gilroy liked a fight scene that we did so much, he leads up to it, and then he writes in the script, it's actually in the script, he says, "As per the stunt Previz, like this is what we're doing." And that was
you just gave me a weird nerd treasure hunt. I'm like, whose script was it?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not kidding. Whose script was it? I bet you I can find it if it's gone somewhere. I'm not fucking kidding.
So that was on one of the episodes of Andor season 2. It's Tony Gilroy's script.
Tony I'm not joking. If he does not own his script, I might be able to find it, and if I can, I'll get it to you.
It may or may not be during the Gorman massacre. It may. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Could be.
I'm just saying, like, I'm way into that world, and all of that shit. Like, Andor's still shooting, so they probably don't have Andor stuff out there. But the second Andor is done shooting, everything is going to hit auctions.
Oh, wow.
And when it is, I'm like, oh, I'm going to fucking see if I can find that for you.
Well, that was in there, and that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And it basically set in stone that, like, we had done such a good job that we bought those characters, and it's a significant moment. It's a significant moment in season 2, which I'm actually the most anticipated to see. But when we were there on the day, they had the Previz up, and this happened on so many episodes. They would have the Previz up on a monitor and then follow those shots. And in the one you're talking about, episode 6, the heist, or we call it the heist, they followed a lot of it, and you can watch it back. There's like certain shot, I remember, where it's like shot for shot. Like, I still need to do those lineups actually, because sometimes we do them. Like, you know, guys getting shot and
with the guy with the two of them laying on the ground getting choked.
Exactly.
And that's all exactly.
That bit, seeing it, so many of the blasters. One guy gets shot at, and then there's like an air burst, and we filmed all of that. And there was so much into it, you know.
So from script to your screen to Previz screen, like, how long does what would be the time frame for, let's say, shooting that episode 6? That it's about a 6-minute Previz, give or take. Like, what would be the time frame?
That was a tricky one. So the really cool thing about Andor is they actually really wanted Previz. So they gave us creativity and they gave us space to do it. Now, and that particular one of the reasons why it looks so good in comparison to the final version is because we shot that Previz on set. And you can kind of see we're actually on the set. It's not finished yet, but we're on the set.
Right.
So the reason that took us 1 week in total to do, 5 days in total, but it's because we had to work twilight hours, and it's basically they were building the set whilst we were shooting the previs on it. And we had to work when the construction guys finished. So the construction guys would finish at like 4 or 5 p.m. here in the UK. We would then go on there with a team of like 20, 25 stunt guys and then try and shoot until midnight, because we weren't allowed to go into night shoots because that would be very expensive.
Hold on. By the way, just because I'm going to say fuck you one more time, you have a budget to shoot a previs to bring in 20 to 25 stunt guys, you asshole.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's actually a really good point, is that Andor was one of those jobs where it did not start like that. It doesn't start with like a massive budget, like, here, take it all. But by the time we'd done X amount of previses, when they got to shooting the big riot scene in season 2, which you'll all see, we had a massive previs for that, and that previs was 10.5 minutes long, and it's like so much happens in that previs that you couldn't physically doing it without having that many people.
No.
They were just so receptive to us doing it because they knew we wouldn't waste the money. They
It's
knew we were like,
that's a huge testament to you, man, and what you put in front of that camera for them, you know, while you're behind it. That's a huge testament to you.
The team,
and the fact that a company like that will, in a way, kind of give you just carte blanche and been like, dude, just this guy's going to get us what we need. That's awesome.
It goes back to what you said before about just creating the high quality previs.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we were in another universe and the first 4 or 5 previses they got were like a waste of time to them, they would never do that. But as it went on, the previses were helping so much. And like, credit to Mark, because Mark, the stunt coordinator, he goes in and he has these conversations with the producers, and then he comes back to us and he's like, cool, we got it. And I'm like, oh, I was sure we were not going to get that. Like, I was sure, like, it's like a big riot scene. I was sure I was going to have to like duplicate, like just CGI guys in there, because there was no way we were going to get it. And, you know, they were, it kind of goes back to like, Andor is like one of the only shows I've ever worked on where it felt, and I've worked on a lot of different shows where everyone felt like they were fighting. Andor felt like everyone was working together and everyone was really trying to get the best thing across. And another thing that was super interesting about
just
Andor
hearing you talk gives that vibe.
Yeah, and one of the things that was super interesting about Andor is like having Tony Gilroy as like the driver made everything kind of easy, because everything goes to him. You know, it's like, and it's not that he's like this, he wouldn't let us be creative. He was super open to ideas, but because you have this like one person that has such a clear-cut vision, then everyone's sort of on the same page, because it's like, well, Tony doesn't want this. And that's like, if someone's saying to you, Tony doesn't want that, you don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's how the show was kind of run, in the sense that he was so like, he was such a visionary. And then obviously when we started doing season 2, season 1 was already out and it was so successful that it almost like entrusts you even more. You're like, this is so cool. Like, I'm really excited about this, you know. But yeah, going back to your point, it took us a week to do that one. It was great because we could shoot on the location. Like, that's not always the case. But in Andor, they were super happy with us. Like, nowadays, production budget lines are so thin that set builds usually happen. Like, they're not finished a set build until the day before they shoot. Or like, you're going in the morning and they're still painting that set that they're going to film on that day. So it's very difficult to try and shoot previs, and then we go and try and build it in box world. And like, man, sometimes like taking the schematics from a spaceship and trying to make that out of boxes, like, I feel like some of us needed like a architectural degree to try and make it work.
Right.
And it became so difficult sometimes, or it, like, sometimes we were able to do it, but then it was just like, you know what, can we just do it on the set? This is physically impossible. And they were really receptive to that, and that the results yielded, like, the previses were well received, and then the show came out well, not just because of the previs, but like, everyone, it was so clear cut on the day because everyone knew what they were doing, you know, which is really
That's
cool.
amazing. When I had to shoot, when I got my first, I would say, real coordinator job, and I brought you in on
the one that just did
Matt Cyrilnik was the writer, and it was a short he was doing. And when he brought me in, I had to shoot a previs, and it was the first time I was shooting. Like, it was the first time I'd ever been hired as a coordinator, and was like, hey, shoot a previs, let us see it, let us do whatever. And it was a fight that they wanted shot in a very specific way that was intercut with an auction of this person's stuff, where he was getting the shit kicked out of him while the auction was going on. But they didn't want action. They wanted stills and slows going back and forth.
The stills would almost freeze frame into a painting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I'm like, what the fuck? So what was funny is I'm like, I don't know how to do this if I don't have the auction. And I was away. I was at work. I was working in Boston. I didn't know anybody that was there. So I had two awesome stunt guys help me out. And then I literally used the auction scenes from Uncut Gems and cut them into my Previz and sent that to them. And they lost their fucking minds when I took the time to do that so they could see how the scene was going to work. And I was just like, I thought you guys were going to laugh your asses off and been like, this guy's a fucking joke.
That's a really clever way of doing it, actually, because like you said, you can't get the tempo unless you cut away sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just cut to a black screen, it goes back to what I was saying about, like, you're trying to showcase a stunt and you cut back to a black screen that says the high fall happens here. I know we're supposed to have imagination in the film industry, but a black screen is like anti-imagination. It's like it's a void. You're like, what's happening here? So that's a really clever way of doing it. And I've done similar things before where you say you don't have, I don't know, say it's like they need an external shot of an airplane. They need to cut to the airplane. Well, obviously I don't have an airplane, but I'll rip a video on YouTube of like that particular thing, just so it's a placeholder that they go, that's a good cut point. I agree with that, because, and actually that's quite a good, interesting point, is that Tony's one of the few writers, when I was reading some of the scripts that he'd write in there, even with the action, he would actually write that he was cutting away to certain things during those bits. So then you do have to incorporate that, and then sometimes the question would be like, well, what if he doesn't cut away? And they're like, he's cutting away.
We run into that problem sometimes when we're writing together.
Yeah.
We're like, no, that's a director's note. You don't need to write that. And then sometimes we decide that we do need to write that for that scene. Yeah. So it's kind of almost subjective.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I agree.
So regarding those choices though, with the black screen and whatnot, watching your Previzes, sometimes the there's no audio other than sound effects and stuff like that. And sometimes you have the stunt performers saying the dialogue. Sometimes it's just in the subtitle. Is there a method to that decision-making process, or when you would use the performer acting and when you would just use a subtitle for the dialogue?
The easy answer is like, it depends how good they are at the dialogue, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's the easy answer. The difficult answer is like, well, sometimes you can deliver the dialogue. Like I worked with Tim Connolly on Gangs of London. He's like an old 8711 guy, or he trains with 8711. And he kind of taught me like the importance of acting in Previz, and was like, listen, I've seen stunt guys lose jobs because of bad acting, or I've seen whole offices turn off from a Previz because a stunt guy is trying to act too hard and it's bad. So I've seen that. But then also the flip side of that is like, there's been stunt people, and I know them, that have been cast because they did such a good job in the Previz. They acted it so well. The director's like, do you know what? He would be really good for that part. Can we get him in for that part? So my method is like, are they good enough to deliver the line? Do we have enough time for that? Because that does take time. Because sometimes like adding a random line in there then means you need to change, like from my point of view, you need to change a lot of the sound design, because it sounds terrible if it's like silence, 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 random line, silence, silence, silence. You kind of need to like tweak the sound design. And then again, with some of the Previz, like I think on that episode 6 one, there was actually still construction going on. So sometimes the sound quality is just not good enough to use. So you just mute it. Like there's literally drilling going on. And unless I'm going to go record ADR somewhere else and then overlay it all, we're in a rush here. And like, it does then boil down to like, what are we trying to sell here? Are we trying to sell acting, or are we trying to just get it done? So sometimes if I have enough time, I really like to use the actor performing and the stunt guy performing and them talking. But if they're not very confident in it, I usually make the decision quite early on before we even start shooting the previs, because that dictates what I'm going to try and do. But what I do still try and have space for is like, I still try and give those shots to the director or the producer of the shots where the dialogue would happen. Hence why I will mute the screen. Sometimes if the stunt guy's not comfortable, they won't even move their lips. It will just like almost be like a pause screen, but the dialogue's coming up. And that's really just like a roadmap to say, this is where we think the line can be delivered before this punch, for example.
But it seems like no matter what it is, when you're shooting, your kind of goal almost is to not give the director or the person watching it the opportunity for that drift of thought while they're watching what you're watching, to make sure that they stay engaged. And almost like you're saying, like that black of just, well, this is here, gives them that drift of thought to second guess what you just did or what possibly you're going to do, and lets them kind of anticipate and be upset when what they want isn't there, as opposed to you just giving them the story and been like, dude. And then there afterwards, they'll be like, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, when doing previs, sometimes it's actually, you made a good point about like people switching off and on when they're watching the previs. It's like, sometimes it's such a tricky job when you have a very demanding actor, and this isn't, I'm actually not talking about Andor in that specifics, but in jobs I've done, you have a very demanding actor, a director that's very tricky, a stunt coordinator that wants something totally different to them, and then a time frame. You're basically trying to, you end up not actually enjoying the previs because you're trying to tick all these boxes to please everyone. And you're trying to like amalgamate this previs into like, does this please this actor? Does this please my stunt coordinator? Does this get this in? And I hate doing previs like that. And like you said, sometimes I try and switch that off, and I just try and think like, how do I want to see this scene? And I say to people sometimes, like, I've shot hundreds of short films because every day I go to work, I'm shooting that scene, and like I'm doing it on a super low budget and I'm shooting it super quick, but I'm still like visualizing the scene. And it's a lot easier to criticize the previs when it's made than starting blank. And we often start blank, right? It's like you have the script. How does this start? What's the shot? What's the opening shot? That's always tricky, right?
Do you ever get storyboards ahead of time, or does that come afterwards?
Yeah, we get storyboards sometimes, although less and less. What we do get a lot more nowadays, and this did happen a lot on Andor, would be, but it wouldn't happen for a lot of the action. It sometimes just happen on things that, you know, you couldn't physically film. We would get these animation previs.
That's what I was telling Paul. I wanted to ask you about that because I've heard on other big IP, jobs from other coordinators that by the time that they're hired, these animatics have been created already, and they're like, hey, this is what we want. You just make it.
And, you know, I would say I've done a job very, very recently that was exactly like that. And I had a real problem with the animatics, and they would spend, like I'm telling you, sometimes they would be spending millions on the animatics. And I'm like, we could just do the previs for a fraction. And I'm talking a fraction of the price. And then you'll see, because the animatic, it's like, it's very useful sometimes, but it's not real. Like the camera might not be able to do what that you can do in Unreal Engine. You know, you can't put a crane there. How are you going to do this? Like, or sometimes
it's like when we had David Tutman on the show, and he was talking about how people shoot a previs with a phone, and then, you're like, you can't get that shot with a real camera.
Yes, I agree.
So
yeah, that's a big thing. But with these animatics, going back to them, sometimes they will actually, and I've worked on Marvel jobs where they actually showing the fight beats in the animatics, and then like some of the good stunt coordinators, I'm like, so do I have to do that? And they're like, don't even attempt to do that. We're going to do our own thing because we're going to do it better. And then it's like, okay, we'll try and do something different to that. And I've done jobs where I've actually thought, let me just copy this in real life before I dismiss the animatic. And I'm like choreographing the fight, looking at the animatic, pausing it. Right, let me do this punch. And then you look at it
like
for
the Troy
real.
fight.
Yeah. And you look at it for real with real bodies, and it doesn't look very good. Your eye forgives in capabilities of the animatics if it's a bad punch, for example, or the wrong angle, or like sometimes the animatics, like the two bodies will do something that when two humans try and do it, it looks terrible. And you forgive it when you're watching the animatic will get a pass. It'll be like, this is what we want. And then you're like, you guys don't understand what that's actually going to look like on camera with two real humans. So I have had to demonstrate that. And what I would say is like, I've definitely more so recently developed a bit more of a skill of like taking animatics and putting them into real life. But what we will use is the animatics. Sometimes I'll intercut with the previs. So when I've done certain jobs where the animatic is showing a superpower that I physically cannot do with After Effects or whatever, I'll use the animatics version for that quick cutaway, similar angle, cut back into it, almost like it's a continuation of the previs. So they can be useful. In Andor, we had them quite often.
But even if you stray away from the animatics that they want by intercutting and using parts of it, you kind of reconfigure their brains to follow the path that you've laid out.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's awesome.
I haven't had, touch wood, I haven't had any major pushback when I've reconfigured, an animated pre-visualization. Like so far, it's been well received. Going back to like when you're saying that taking directors out of thought processes, on that exact previs of episode 6, I remember it was quite funny. We were doing the previs, we were shooting it, and then one evening, we were there before we went to the site. I was editing some effects, and the director of that episode came in. And directors always want to see whatever it is you're doing, and it's so frustrating sometimes when you're not finished, because you don't want to show them something bad, because their mind will wander, and then you might end up doing 3 times the amount of work because they suddenly change something. And you're like, no, it's not going to look like this, I promise. Anyway, the director came in and she was like, oh, can I see the previs? I was like, oh, no, here we go. It's not quite done yet. But anyway, the funny part of that is I'm showing her the previs, or the team, we're all showing her the previs, and she's just like, she's nodding along, she's really happy. We finished the previs, and then she's like, yeah, it's really good. The only thing I would say is like, you guys are using a lot of blood. And I remembered that we had just finished Gangs of London, or like we were jumping between the two. And I don't know what was going through mine and Che's head when we're some of the faster guys are getting like headshot, and we're doing like massive blood splats and all this kind of stuff. And so she, like, bless her, she watched the whole previs and she was like, that's just a little bit less blood would be great.
I want that. No I'm blood. Like, I want Andor with Gangs of London violence.
Yeah, it was pretty OTT, and it was good for me because I was like, oh great, blood's hard to do sometimes. Like, it's good not to do it. But yeah, it was funny that she nearly could have switched off, but she was really receptive and But yeah, I've had that multiple times where directors seriously get into the previs and they're like, can you change this sound effect to this? And I'm like, okay. Or I've had directors request soundtracks for previs that they want to.
Do you get access to like Disney Sound Database or anything?
No. Everything, sound design, visual effects design, everything's just done by ourselves. They're pretty strict with what they give us. They don't give us much.
I have a question. It's not random. So you're a fight coordinator.
Yes.
And then you've mentioned the stunt coordinator, but we haven't talked about what is the difference and what is your relationship? How do you guys work together?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? It differs on every job with every team that I do. I would say it really depends on the stunt coordinator. I've worked with stunt coordinators who have given me the position of fight coordinator, and I'll choreograph the fight. And then on the day, it's like I can't even get a word in to anyone because the stunt coordinator just wants to run it their way, which is fine. That might be their position on that job. With Andor and with Mark Maley, who's the stunt coordinator on Andor, who I've worked with on my last like 7 or 8 jobs, I think the reason why I've worked with him so much is because he is so receptive to what we do as a fight team. He gives us like carte blanche to like come up with something. He gives us input, but he trusts us enough to like not be over my shoulder when I'm filming the previs, because it really disrupts the process. He might see something and go, I'm not sure about that. Can we have it like this? But then when it comes to like the fight stuff on the day, like in some of the fight scenes in season 2, for example, because there is a lot more fighting in season 2, he would be so kind and he would let me run the floor, like fully run the floor. And to the point where if we're following the previs, which we did a lot of, this was like, you know, this only happened because he had such a good relationship with everyone. But I would be like, okay, the next shot, that camera needs to be there. We need to go from here. The actors are here. This is kind of what we're doing. And I'd be like, the director, I was like, so you're cool with that? And the director's like, yeah, great. I love it. And this was only happening because there wasn't like major egos clashing. And it was like, but then I would very happily like take a sit back and like, say we'd done a previs, it's not a fight, but it's something else. He would go and show it. He would have the meetings with Tony. He would have something and then come back and pass the feedback. So I'd say with the fights, as a fight coordinator, I'm in my happiest place when I can be super involved with the process and then on the day, because all I really want is like the vision that everyone signed off on to manifest on screen. That's kind of like my goal. And if that can be achieved, then I'm super happy. And when I see it getting derailed on the day, as it sometimes does, it's so frustrating. And I feel like that's happened on other jobs with other teams. I think one of the reasons why I've stayed with Mark and his team for so long is like every successive job I've done, we've been able to find that balance where it's like we really are getting pretty good at getting the final product on screen. But there's a lot that can get in the way of that. And it's not just like the way the day runs. It can be done in the editing process. It can be, you know, the camera guys might not shoot it the way you want them to shoot it. The first AD might not understand that we're shooting the previs. There is like so many cogs in the chain, or like pieces in the machine that can stop that final product from manifesting. And it really, like, full credit to Mark. He's so good at like managing people in a way that they trust our team. And I feel like when we get that trust, I have the best days I've ever had on set, because I truly feel like we're creating something that's super good, and I'm super excited to see it. And with Andor season 2, never before, and I'd have stunt people come in to like from other teams, from other jobs, and they'd come in and they're just doing dailies or whatever, and then they're seeing like the previs next to the director's monitor, and then us, me and the stunt guys going over and saying, okay, cameras over there, this and this, and they're going to me, they're tapping me, and they're going, is this like normal on like stunt jobs? And I'm like, on this one it is. On this one they're really trusting us a lot, and we have a lot of fun with that, but so our relationship as a team is really good. But that's not the same on every job. On other jobs I've had, where it's like you just put the fights together, the previs is totally disregarded, on the day someone else runs it, so it really just depends on the team, in my opinion.
I'm curious, something that you said made me think of one of the previs you sent us, where I don't remember what it was, but I think I remember the previs. I forget exactly what you just said that made me think of it, but it had to do with giving options, giving options.
That's a good point.
And you sent that one previs with the various stairfall options, option A, option B, option C. And it reminded me of when I was on Ray Donovan, and Doc Duhame, the stunt coordinator, was like, hey, can you send me a video of like several options of how an arm would break in this, how somebody could break an arm in this situation? They don't know what they want to do. They send me 5 or 6 different variations. I immediately thought of that watching that previs, because you were like, all right, here's how we can fall down the stairs. Here's how we can fall down the stairs. Here's how we can fall down the stairs. How often do you do that? Like, give them options?
When I first started Andor, I hated that. I hated the option thing. And I don't know where it came from, the idea of giving them options, but it soon became a reason, like it soon became totally accepted amongst the team. And often we'd have to give options. Like the stairfall thing was like, okay, I want a few different options of how we could film the stairfall. And that sometimes that could be down to budget. It can be like, if we add a cut here, it'll be cheaper. Or if we film it like this, we can use the double, for example, or we can soft set the stairs. So you're giving options possibly to allow for like different budgeting options. But often we had to do options based on like, it was a big character moment, say a character death, and they want to see a few different ways that character might die. And I used to hate doing options, because sometimes I would think like, a kid in the candy store, if they have too many options, they don't know what they want. Sometimes you should just know what you want. But I kind of get it. It's like, sometimes you need to see the various different things to go, that's the one. That's the one. Now I've seen it. That's the one. And it is like that whole that's one of the reasons why we did that so much on Andor, is because this previs was like a problem-solving ritual of every sort of action scene that we would do as the stunt team. But it wasn't just a stunt team; it was a problem-solving ritual. Like, we would do previs sometimes. The notes we would get back weren't super positive, but they weren't negative. They were like, okay, now we've seen it, we understand that we need to change this, and that's why we would do options. But it was quite often.
When you guys do it makes sense now that you do the 3 or 4 minute lead up before the action, because if you just shoot a previs without the lead up, you're, as weird as it is, even though it's action in itself has a tone. It has its own level. And if your action doesn't follow a proper lead up, then the action and what happened before that could actually kind of take people out, because you're going from like a classical music to fucking heavy metal.
I couldn't agree more.
So I was like, oh, it makes, so now as listening to you explain, I was like, this is why they want the first 3 minutes, because it's about the feeling of your lead up into your action and then into them walking out has got to have a pace.
That is exactly why, full credit to Mark, the stunt coordinator, and the production team, who started to give us that level of responsibility, because they needed to see exactly what you described. If you just, and I've done jobs before where I've even just done like a few seconds of the build up, and the stunt coordinator's like, no, we just do the action. It's a bit of an old school way of thinking. We just do the action. We don't tell them how the performance is going to be. And I understand that. But with Andor, they were like exactly that. It was like, let's just double check, or let's just feel that this is correct. And if you, like with a fight scene, like when you're doing fight scenes, you are telling the story through physicality. You need to make sure that the story is still being carried correctly through the physicality. And I do feel like now, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys agree, and I have seen some videos on this, that sometimes action is causing me to switch off. And I love action. And the reason why, and I've had this conversation with guys on set, I feel like, and it's not a criticism of stunt performers, but what everyone's trying to do, or what a lot of people are doing, is they're just thinking, let me shoehorn the coolest moves into the fight scene, and let me shoehorn.
There's a Disney show right now that's doing that.
I couldn't agree with you more. And
there's a Disney show right now that's doing that. I get taken out of a lot of the action.
I would add, and this is kind of a tangent conversation, but I would add that, like, I feel that there's a homogenization of action where things are just starting to look the same.
I agree.
Like, like you're watching a show and I'm like, oh, this is more of the same, and it's more of the same. And I feel like our community, you even see it in when people are putting up practice fights on Instagram and all this kind of stuff.
My feed is full of it. Like, literally, my feed is full.
Sometimes I'm just like, oh, great fight. I'm like, why did you just do a Hong Kong twist and land on your feet?
It's also similar that you do drift off, you do get bored, and there's no story in most of them.
I know. I've kind of gone full circle in the way I used to like approach action or think about action. I used to just think about it like, let me try and get cool moves in. And then I started doing more stuff that was story orientated, like Andor and other things. And then I started to watch social media and how much social media was annoying me with, like, I don't mind, like, there's nothing wrong with some people getting together and doing fight scenes, but it has made me realize that just a fight scene in itself, no matter how cool it is, can be boring. And I didn't think that was possible when I started. I used to think like, well, action is action. Action can be cool. But
when you were doing it, were you the one doing it or were you the one watching it? When you become the one watching it, you start to think that way. But when you're the one doing it, you don't think that way.
You don't think that way. I agree. And I think that's what's happened is, like, now I'm not putting out as much content of like fun fights because I'm actually kind of busy working, and and doing it. And
what do you mean you have a life and a profession?
It's kind of hard to do it. But it is a good way for stunt people to be seen. I've actually employed a lot of people or recommended a lot of people based on those videos, because it's a good way for me to go, okay, they can move. I can see they can move. That's great. Let me get them in. But yeah, anyway, going back to just action.
You mean like the secret repository of a certain Sambo guy's Instagram videos?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I know. Sambo Steve should be credited in pretty much every stunt person's, short fight scenes, because I'm guilty of this. I had however many banked Instagram videos that Sambo Steve used to put up in that gym that you're in right now, because I recognize it. And yeah, I would go through your stuff so much because you would do it in a gi, which is great for costume. You would share it. There was no like, you wouldn't keep all your stuff to yourself. And your videos were done in a way that I could learn from, which was super good. So even though I literally know nothing about Sambo, I feel like I've learned a lot from your videos, and I honestly have nothing to say but thank you, because, and there's so many other stunt people that definitely have your videos on their phone, but probably wouldn't want to admit that and sort of regurgitate your moves without saying it, but at the end of the day, I think it's
people
cool.
are always like, why do you hang around with this dusty old fart? Now you know why. You heard it.
Yeah, that's it.
I've seen people show me a video and I'm like, oh, I know that guy. I've seen that guy on Instagram as well. So, there is a community of people that share quite a lot of stuff, which is cool.
I got my first stunt job. Like, I really, really feel that I had my first opportunity on Daredevil when Chris Brewster was watching a video of someone doing a roll and Eminari.
An Eminari entry to a leg lock.
Into an ankle lock. And he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I literally looked at him. I'm like, I can show you that right now.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, I'm like, this is what I do. I was like, that's my coach. I was like, I can show you that move. And he's like, what the fuck? Literally showed him that move. We became friends on set. And then when I got my SAG card, my first job, Brewster was like, come in and shoot a previs with me.
Oh, great.
So it was just Steve's opportunities for what Steve shows you. They show up all the time.
Yeah. It's cool, Steve. Congrats.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, the first time I reached out to you on Instagram, I think it was after you were on the Stunt Pod. Maybe back then I reached out and you had said, oh, I know your videos or whatever. I was like, what? Really? Cool.
Yeah, I was honest with you because I actually do feel like in our industry, credit should be given when it's due. And there's a lot of people that sort of claim ideas that aren't theirs. I think you put out a lot of stuff that for sure you could probably watch a lot of films and go, I think I probably put a video of that on, and anyway, it's just cool because you teach people and you've taught a lot of the stunt community, a martial art that's not like, I have nowhere to learn Sambo in the UK. Not that I know of, maybe now, but
I know some people over there, but for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, even that's what, I mean, to bring this back to the social media thing, the positives and negatives about it. When the very first time I met Chad Stahelski, when he brought me on Wick, I asked him in an interview, I said, how do you know about me? And he said, oh, I subscribe to your YouTube channel, And I was like, oh, that's really awesome.
There's a lot more people that know you than you realize, I think, based on the content you put out there, which is cool because like it's nice to share stuff that you're good at, and I feel like I've learned a lot from some of the stuff you put out.
But back to you, because this is about you.
Mike, it's been like we're on 20, 30, 31 episodes, and I really think that this is all Steve fucking wanted.
Yeah.
He finally figured it out.
He finally got it.
34 episodes, he finally got it.
But I do want to kind of tie the video, and this ties into social media too, and the performance and the storytelling. But were you always about how did you move through? I mean, you can maybe give us the Cliff Notes version of how you became a performer, but at what point did the Previz expertise become a thing for you, and where is that going to go? Are you looking at directing? Like, what's that trajectory for you?
That's a really good question. It's funny because sometimes I look back at my stunt career and I'm like, how did I get into it myself? And when I was 14 or 15, but I didn't realize it at the time. When I was 14 or 15, I used to hang out with my friends and I had like a VCR camera that had like a video cassette into it. And then I had to have a converter and be able to like edit it. I was as early as like 14 or 15 years old. I was filming my own friends who were not stunt people. None of them ever became stunt people. They were literally just my friends in a park. And we do like mock-up fight scenes. And I never really thought of that. I came into stunt work because I did a lot of gymnastics, a lot of martial arts. And it was something where I was like, well, I might be able to get into the film world. But this was like, there was a huge gap between me making these short films with my friends to like then training, growing up as an adult, then becoming a stunt person, doing lots of stunt work. I got on at a fortunate time here in the UK when I was quite young, and I did a lot of jobs back to back, working with some great people. And then there was a point in the industry where I'd done a lot of stunts, a lot of core team jobs, mostly as stunt doubles or utilities. And I was like not enjoying it anymore. And I just didn't understand why I wasn't enjoying it. And then I worked on Wonder Woman with Damon Caro and his whole team, Ryan Watson, Alan Joe, Wayne Dalgleish. And I saw them doing Previz because I'd done Previz before, but never to a level have I seen Previz be done and then shoot it on the day. And Wonder Woman was the first time. And I watched it happen. I was in the Previz, and then we shot one of those fights exactly as the Previz on the day. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And then I started learning, but I had this background from when I was like 14 or 15 of like, I kind of think I know how to shoot stuff a little bit, and I know how to edit basic, but I did have to relearn. A friend of mine, Che, who we grew up together, he's also in stunts. I was like, let's do this together because you're quite good with effects. You can teach me effects. I can teach you some editing, blah, blah, blah. Cut to, you know, it wasn't like I'm going to do Previz. All of a sudden I get to do Previz on films. I did Previz to practice, posted stuff online, then started getting contacted like, hey, do you want to come in for 2 days? And then I think also, as well as being able to do Previz on jobs, you can go into a job and you can be an asshole and they will never hire you again. Doesn't matter how good you were. As a demeanor and as a team, we were like specializing in trying to be polite and quick. And because there was 2 of us doing it, we would turn a Previz round. What might take someone a week to do, we might turn it around in 2 days. And so that was another addition to it. And then I realized like, I've kind of come full circle. I always knew that that was the thing I wanted to do. And now what I've realized is it's not fights. It's actually telling stories. And you made a good point. You were like, where do you want to go with this? I've literally just in the process, me and Che have been working on something, but we've just started. Like I've done like 4 drafts of a short film that I want to make. And yeah, I would love to be able to direct something. And so we have a short film that we budgeted for that we're going to try and shoot this summer. And it's not like just an action film. It's actually a short film with story, with interest. And yeah, so I think like as a dream, that would be my next progression. Would be like, I've shot hundreds of short films. Like, let me try one where I don't have to take notes from anyone, where we can kind of do our thing free. And we know that we can do it because we do so much Previz. We can do a Previz of our short film. So we're ready to do on the day, you know, and stuff. So yeah, I would say where I'd like to go in the future would be to just tell more stories. And in whatever capacity that lands me in, whether it's as a director, whether I continue doing Previz, as long as I'm able to tell stories and be creative, that's when I'm happy. But if it becomes mundane or I feel like caged and I'm not doing that, I would stop stunt work if I started to feel like I couldn't be creative. But at the moment that satisfies both. But I would love, to tell
one
my
of the
own
things
story.
that I love about when I write with Steve is that what we're writing now came of a short, an idea that I had, and it was action.
Yeah.
And we are writing a feature length film of so much more than action. But what's really, really awesome to me is taking this story to watch now this short unfold and make so much more sense because we've developed to everything behind it and to the side of it and to the, you know what I mean? And then when you go back to the short, you're like, God, this means so much more now.
Yeah, writing the screenplay has been so. I mean, we're not writers, you know, by
any means,
profession or anything, but
if you're writing, you are, right? Like
well, that's true.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
like I felt exactly, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I felt exactly the same way. I'd never written anything before this. And then I started to write, and I had this like block in my head, like I'm going to have to pay a writer to write this. And I'm not disagreeing that writers don't have their place. Of course they do. Sure. But directors write as well. You know, anyone can write. If you can write, if you're writing something and it looks good to you on paper, like you are writing. you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's been such a great experience since we wrote the short. I mean, he came up with the seed idea, then we wrote the short, and then we're like, okay, let's write the feature. The original plan was let's write the short.
I think we just
shoot
wrote the short, and then the short story was kind of so cool that there was no way you could think about it without wondering about the background.
Well, and remember we were like, let's shoot the short, but have the feature screenplay in the back pocket in case somebody, in case we hit the lotto.
And then as we were writing the short to shoot, we just started writing the back, and we're like, fuck it, let's just write a movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a really fun way of doing it, right? Because then if you do the short, your short unknowingly has depth to it. And I think that's what makes a successful short.
It was almost like when we were trying to describe why this is happening, we were just like, fuck, we might as well just write all of this precursor stuff to why they're all here, and boom, feature.
And that's exactly kind of how I fell into it. Is like I felt intimidated. Like, how do I start writing? And then I was reading quite a lot of stuff and trying to figure it out. And I was like, let me write one scene, and it doesn't need to be the beginning. It could be a scene I want to do, and that scene itself could just be the short. And then films have been made off of scenes. And, one of the things, and you guys will have the same experience as well, is like Quentin Tarantino, he was like on so many podcasts, I've listened to stuff he talks about, and he says, he spent so much time working in a video store. Well, what's better than working in a video store? Working on the movies themselves, right? So we have seen from the beginning, from the scripts to the making process, I feel like I've learned so much. And I've worked with so many different directors that we will have a good understanding of how to do something, and it's worth giving it a shot sometimes. And that's what's motivated me this year. Like I feel like this is the year that I want to try and like have that cathartic expression and get it off my chest. And if I never do it again, great. But I think it's like, it's nice to try and be creative and do your own stories sometimes, because there's a lot of good stories that need to be told.
Absolutely. There are a lot of good stories that need to be told. And on that note, this is so much fucking fun. I'm literally looking at the clock and I'm like, I don't want to, but we have to.
Yeah, the timer is going into negative.
The timer is going into negative time.
Sorry. No, this was great.
Don't be. Dude. This was such a great interview.
What a great way to end, though. I mean, this is about telling stories, and it's what it's about. And it's just been such a great interview, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so
much.
This
is awesome.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a real pleasure, and I love what you guys do. And Steve, one more time again, thank you for helping everyone's stunt career.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I appreciate it. So, man, I don't know. I don't want it to end, but we're gonna have to just end it. You have to rip the.
You just gotta pull out.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I don't want to see the Previz for that one.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
All right, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Film Fights with Friends is produced by Steven Kepfer, Paul Veracci, Press Record Studios, and Breakball Studios. This episode was engineered by Matthew Kaplowitz. This show is powered by our supporters at Patreon and is a registered trademark of Film Fights with Friends, LLC. Original theme by Aru Luster.